Hello, my name is Brandon Biggs. I am the CEO and co-founder of XR Navigation, and you are listening to White Canes Connect.
Hey there, PA Federationists. Welcome to another episode of White Canes Connect, presented by the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. My name is David Goldstein. I am the first vice president of the NFB of PA. Joining me today, as always, is co-host and White Canes Connect creator, Lisa Bryant. Lisa, how are you today?
I am great, and I feel enlightened, David. Our guest today, Brandon Biggs, is co-founder of XR Navigation, creator of Audiom, the first digital map. And initially, as I say in the interview, I didn't quite get it. This is kind of not my thing, but as people will hear, as he explains what it is and even demonstrates, very, very overused word, accessible, but I got it. And I'm excited for people to hear this conversation.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it as well. As far as trying the map out, as I mentioned, I'm going, as we record this, I'm going to New York in a couple of days, and I hope to use it. And I can't wait. And I hope that at some point they will not only be doing maps that are outside and for conventions and things like that, as you'll hear Brandon talk about in the interview, but they'll be able to do the subway stations in New York or the train stations or museums or zoos or whatever it might be, because it's so needed in those places for us where we can't use a regular map. Maybe some of these museums now offer tactile maps. I know some that we've worked with have offered tactile maps, but an audio map, especially the way Brandon's Audiom works, just would be outstanding for some of the places that I'm thinking about.
Yeah. And I think devices like this, or tools rather is a better word, like this, help us to expand our world. As we were talking offline, I tend to go to the same places just because of their familiarity. But something like this can kind of give you that confidence to step outside of your little circle or your box or whatever.
Yeah, so out of your comfort zone.
Exactly. So let's listen to Brandon Biggs, creator of Audiom.
Let's welcome the CEO and co-founder of XR Navigation. Find them at xrnavigation.io. Brandon Biggs, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Brandon, we're so glad that you reached out to David. I believe you guys connected via LinkedIn. And we're really excited to kick off one of our early episodes of the new year with a product that you say is the first of its kind, Audiom. So we'd love to have you, of course, go into a lot of detail about what Audiom is, but tell us about you first. Who is Brandon Biggs and how did you come to think of this product?
Well, I'm totally blind myself, and when I go onto a website like Google Maps or Apple Maps or Esri or any of right now there's the Los Angeles fires. So if I go into Cal fires or hurricane maps or anything like that, there's millions of maps on the web and they're completely blank to my screen reader. So my screen reader will read map region, graphic clickable, blank. And that inspired me to go into an inclusive design master's degree. So I was originally a vocal performance and opera singer. So I got my undergrad in music. And then after that, I took a product design course and was really inspired by the universal design principles that they talked about in that course. So I looked around for master's degrees in universal design or inclusive design. I didn't know what the difference was back then, but I found Ontario College of Art and Design University has a master's in inclusive design. So I went ahead and applied there and miraculously got in. And my very first foray into the first projects that I did were related to how do we make graphs accessible, charts accessible. And then we started getting into maps, and graphs and charts has actually had a lot of research done on them, but maps, especially digital only maps, had absolutely like almost nothing. There was a little bit, but the amount of research that was done on charts and graphs just way overshadowed, like was just way more than what maps and spatial diagrams have had. So that was very quickly, we found that that was a need. And so basically since 2017, when I got my master's in inclusive, but when I started my master's in inclusive design, I've been researching non-visual digital geographic maps and spatial diagrams. So I got my master's in inclusive design in 2019, and then went to the Smith Cuttawatt Eye Research Institute directly after that, where I started working, researching this more. And then I also began my PhD researching non-visual digital geographic maps in 2021, and that's where I'm at right now. So I also, before, like during my master's degree and a little bit before then, I also started a company with my mom where we provided all the components of a visually impaired program to K-12 schools around the US. And as part of that, we were able to see that material preparation is just a really bad system right now. It's super expensive. The materials can't be reused from student to student. It takes forever to get your materials. So if you're, in elementary school or grade school, and your professor or your teacher has something they need to get to you, it takes 2 weeks on average to have that transcribed into Braille. And for things that are really complicated, like, hey, the LA fire map, or, something that is live, it's really impossible to make that accessible. And so that's where, I said there must be a better way to do this. And on top of that, why is it only blind people that get access to these really awesome materials? Why can't sighted people have access to non-visual experiences as well? So that's where, my inspiration to go in inclusive design came from. So that's really the foundation of why we created Audiom.
And Lisa, I forgot to tell you, he wears many hats. If you go check him out over on LinkedIn, there is a boatload of things that he does there, and professional opera singer was one. Now, do you feel that, so you went to school for music, and I guess you're kind of using that, is that correct?
To some extent, I definitely use a lot of the music theory that I did in school. I also use a lot of the audio engineering work that I did, but now at this stage, I hire a blind sound designer to make the sounds for Audiom. So yeah, I have a lot of things that I need to do, and that is definitely something I can do. I'm not very good at it, so I hire people that are much better than me.
Okay, the smart way to go. Now, talking about the maps, I don't know, thinking back to when COVID came along and upended everybody's lives, they had maps for those, which of course were not accessible at all. And that was something that a lot of folks complained about going back 4 or 5 years. So your product, Audiom, it would be something that would be very useful for something
Absolutely.
like
In fact, we've got a demo of a COVID statistic map on our website. It's definitely was one of our very first maps that we did, and it's how what we actually got funded for at Smith Cuttawatt initially to do Audiom research.
Brandon, this is a good segue into explaining exactly what Audiom is. Do you want to give a brief explanation and then do the demo?
Audiom is a visual, auditory, and text-based map viewer and editor. The visual experience is what you would expect from a map, except it allows low vision users to zoom in up to 200% without squashing the interface elements, adjust the border width of features to make them easier to see, switch between using patterns or colors for colorblind users, and access the entire interface using the keyboard. And so every single feature on the map is fully accessible with a keyboard. The non-visual experience, which is what we're going to really investigate today, is very similar to a video game where users hear the name and sound of objects as they move a character over them. You can adjust your step size to be whatever you want it to be. So 50 kilometers, 1 meter, 10 meters, whatever. And basically you move the character around using your arrow keys, touch screen, or other controller. So it works on any device that has access to the browser. So I'm going to demonstrate the thematic map aspect of Audiom, which is our COVID statistic map. So I currently am on the the geographic view. There are two modes, a geographic view and a tabular view. I'm going to start with the tabular view. The tabular view
table name
has a column for each of the statistical values on the map.
right arrow, total cases column header row 1 column 2.
And I'm going to have my arrow keys read so you know what I'm pressing, but you don't actually need to have those read out. This is just my screen reader reading right arrow, left arrow, down arrow, up arrow. So just it's for audio description purposes. So we have total cases.
Right arrow, cases per 1 million column header row 1 column.
Cases per 1 million, and now I'm going to go down through the rows, which each represent a state.
Down arrow, 312,280 Montana row 2 cases per 1 million column 3.
And we heard there that Montana has a fairly high pitch related to the other pitches in this column. I'm going to keep going down.
Down arrow, 410,412 Alaska row 3 cases per 1 million column.
But Alaska has way higher cases per 1 million than Montana. I'm going to down arrow one more time.
Down arrow, 383,964 North Dakota row 4 cases per 1 million column 3.
So North Dakota also has a pretty high cases per 1 million. So I'm going to go look and see total cases.
Left arrow, 292,604 North Dakota row 4 total cases column.
So it actually has a really low number of total cases.
Right arrow, 383,964 North.
But a very high number of cases per 1 million. I'm going to hit enter on this.
And alert maps 13.
And what this did now was switched the view, the statistics that are showing on the map from whatever it was before to cases per 1 million. And it jumped me to the center of North Dakota. So now if I can move my character around the map 50 kilometers each arrow press. So I'm going to go ahead and move around this map and see how North Dakota's cases relate to the other states around North Dakota.
Right arrow, North Dakota, 383,964 cases per 1 million, minus 99.47, 47.45.
And what we heard there was the state. We heard a sound representing the cases in that state. We heard the actual number of cases and some coordinates to tell us where we are on the map. So I'm going to keep going.
Right arrow, North Dakota, right arrow, Minnesota, 320.
So we can tell that Minnesota is to the right of North Dakota, and it has a lower number of cases per 1 million. Now I'm going to use a technique called weaving to quickly kind of go around North Dakota and get the shape, size, orientation, and different aspects of North Dakota.
Left arrow, North Dakota, down arrow, right arrow, Minnesota, down arrow, Minnesota, left arrow, South Dakota, left, up, left arrow, down, left, down, left, up arrow, right arrow, up arrow, left arrow, Montana, up arrow, right arrow, up arrow, north, left arrow, up arrow, empty space.
So now we're up in Canada. So we saw that Montana is to the left, South Dakota is to the bottom, and Canada is up to the top.
Down, right, up, right, down, right arrow, north, down arrow.
And
Minnesota,
so what we learned,
322,002.
What we learned there was that Minnesota has the highest number of total cases bordering North Dakota, but North Dakota itself actually has the highest number of cases per 1 million out of those bordering states. And then we also learned the distance, direction, shape, size, orientation, and layout of all the states surrounding and including North Dakota in that few seconds there. So there's a lot of information you can get by just using your arrow keys to move around, a set number of kilometers each arrow press. So that's basically the fundamental, thing that Audiom allows you to do.
Now, in this example, would someone be able to do a search? Like, I just want to know Pennsylvania.
Absolutely.
This map and the table, is the table on that page as well, or is the table okay?
Yeah. So you hit T to get to the table.
Table.
And you can open that and up, and it's the exact information. In fact, it has more information on this table. You can use
right arrow, total cases column.
You can sort.
Enter. Sorted.
See, I would probably just use this.
The problem
this is
with
very
this,
simple. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so the table's great if you for the information that you want, that you get from the table. Use the table whenever you can. Yeah. It does not have any information about the geography. Right. So like if you wanted to know what state bordering North Dakota has the highest number of cases, go ahead and answer that with the table, and I will give you a lot of money to do that. If you can figure out how to do that, you will be the first person I've ever met who can actually answer those types of questions, especially with no prior knowledge of how the geography is laid out. So that is why we need maps.
Yeah. Yeah. So this launched when?
So our official quote unquote launch date, we like to say, was April 2024. And that's when we got our accessibility conformance report from Level Access, showing that we were WCAG, not AA, but AAA compliant.
Is that, I should know this. Is that the highest standard?
Yes. So the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG, has 3 levels of compliance, and there's A, AA, and AAA. AA is what's required by law, and that's what the ADA Title II requires. The European Accessibility Act will require. The Digital Accessibility Act from Europe, they also require that. Anyway, there's a lot of different laws that are tied to the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, AA compliance. So very few people go above that. We went above and beyond that AA compliance, and we're at AAA. And Level Access, which is who evaluated us, and never ever seen, like, they very rarely see people who hit AAA, let alone
their first product. Yeah. And in the first product at that.
Yeah, exactly. First product, and then in a map, because they never even seen an accessible map before. So this is like the first one they ever saw.
This really would have helped me. I was doing a story and I had to look at statistics by state, and
yeah,
I struggled. I mean, this really would have been very helpful. So I'm all about the tables, but I understand the context of
use the tables when you can. They're
right.
much faster. We actually just did a study. I'm doing the analysis right now, and we found that the tables have much lower cognitive load than using Audiom. But both visual maps and Audiom, which is Audio Map, I guess, have the same level of cognitive load when you're using them. So tables definitely are easier to use for both blind and sighted people, but Audiom and visual maps have very similar cognitive work profiles when you're actually using them. But we didn't find any statistical difference between using a visual map and using Audiom. So answering questions, or really on using the interface through workload. So basically we can say now that on these types of maps, there's no difference between using a visual map and Audiom.
So talking about the map, and we'll get into, and maybe you can demonstrate how someone would use it when navigating. I'm going to be in New York on Friday. I may need something like this to get from, let's say, the train station to the subway. How would I, or anyone for that matter, is this an app? Is this a plugin that goes along with, let's say, Google Maps or whatever it might be? How would I get that?
How do you get it?
Audiom.net. So audiom.net is where you can go to get you can go and generate your own map. So basically you can enter in your address, and I can demonstrate that if you want. So you go to audiom.net.
Audiom, the world's most inclusive map viewer.
And you can, before you do this, you definitely want to try out the Audiom demo. So I'm going to go and
button skip navigation. Main landmark, generate a map, heading level 2, use my.
All right, so here it says generate a map.
Button, or.
We're going to go down.
Enter, combo, button, no. Heading level 1, welcome to Audiom. The heading level 2, try Audiom for yourself.
And then it says try Audiom for yourself. It's the first heading 2 on the page.
Playground frame, clickable, heading level 3, map. Map region button, enable sounds and skip to map.
And you're going to want to click the enable sounds and skip to map button. It's very important that you do that, because otherwise the map won't actually have sounds, and you want the sounds.
Audio map.
And so once you do that, then you're on the map piece, and you can press any key to start the interactive tutorial. So I'm not going to do the interactive tutorial right now. You can go do it yourself.
Audio map.
But instead, I'm going to go back.
Out of region. Main landmark, generate a map, heading level.
And go down to that generate a map heading.
Button, use my current location.
And you can either use your current location, which will then pop up a dialog that'll ask for permission to access your current GPS location.
Or enter an address.
And I'm going to enter an address.
Combo box collapse. Enter
an
address.
I'm going to enter 2318.
1820 space.
Fillmore.
Dot space.
San Francisco.
O. Enter an address. Combo box expanded, has autocomplete, editable. 2318 spelling error, Fillmore, spelling error, street. Spelling error, spelling error, Francisco. List 2318 Fillmore Street, San Francisco, California.
All right, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter on this.
Enter an alert loading Audiom. Audiom map 23
and it's going to take a little bit for Audiom to load, but basically it'll load up and place you at that location so that you're going to start at that particular address. We are not super good at rendering out full cities yet, so I definitely recommend using an address that you're going to. And oftentimes maps you can have questionable data for a particular location since this is OpenStreetMap data. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the Control Home button to get to the very top. It says Enable Sounds and Skip to Map.
alert loading Audiom.
There we go. That ding ding means that Audiom has loaded. So now I'm going to hit that button.
Button enable sounds and skip to map.
Press H to open help.
And so I'm going to use my screen reader by pressing /.
Using your screen reader.
And now I can use my arrow keys to move around. And now we're at 1 meter each step.
The Smith Kettlewell Eye Research Institute at 2318 Fillmore Street.
And so I can also turn on surround sounds by pressing P.
Playing ambient sounds.
And so we've got sounds that are around us. So as we start moving around, we're going to hear some sounds and spatial audio. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this menu.
Filter objects submenu 2 of 430.
So there are 430 objects in this neighborhood. So I'm going to hit the down arrow.
The Smith Kettlewell Eye Research Institute at 2318 Fillmore Street building is right here.
So that's right here.
Submenu 3, 2306 and 2310 Fillmore Street retail building is 13 steps right and 8 steps down. Submenu.
And so, yeah, we can go through all these different objects that are around us.
2472 Clay Street building is 18 steps right and 13 steps down. Fillmore Street Road is 29 steps left and 35 steps up. Submit 2470 Clay Street building is 25 steps right. 2465 Washington's 20 Supercuts Hairdresser is 6 steps left and 32 steps down.
Let's go find this one.
Go to a 5.
I'm going to get directions to it. So you can jump to that location.
Listen 3 of 5.
You can listen to the sound, the 3D sound that it makes if it has one.
Directions submenu
You can
4
get
of 5.
directions. I'm going to go ahead and get directions.
Supercuts Hairdresser is 6 steps left and 32 steps down.
And so it tells me the 6 steps left and 32 steps down. So now I'm going to actually pretend that I'm actually on the road. So I'm going to go to the left.
The Smith Kettlewell.
And I know that the street is to the left because I saw that in the menu.
Empty space.
So there's empty space here. But if we're quiet, we can actually hear that there are some cars going to our left.
Fillmore Street Road.
There we are. We're on Fillmore Street. So I can go ahead and go down.
So this is live. Like
Yeah,
what
this
we're
is live. Yeah, this is live. Yep. So I'm going to go ahead and go to down on Fillmore Street.
Empty Fillmore Street.
And
Fillmore Street.
basically, it's turning a little bit to the right. So if I wanted to, I could go ahead and hit the O key.
Orienting to Fillmore Street South, 171 degrees facing south.
And so that means that now I'm facing south, and I'm going to just go find, I'm just going to hit the up arrow key, basically, and that's going to make me walk forward, which is south. It's kind of hard to describe, but that'll orient me so that I'm facing south now. So up arrow moves me south. I'm going to go along Fillmore Street.
Fillmore Street. Fillmore Street Road, 170.
And so now I can, look and see what's around me.
Filter objects submenu. Fillmore Street Road is right here. 2306 and 2310 Fillmore Street is 10 steps right and 3 steps down. 23 the Smith Supercuts Hairdresser is 14 steps left and 10 steps down.
Okay. So you can kind of hear that these different objects are around you. So that is basically how the whole entire situation here with Audiom works. Let's go find that. I'm going to move back up to facing north because that's how I think. I can't think with first person mode. So
south, west, north, 0 degrees.
So let's go see where that is.
D. Supercuts Hairdresser is 14 steps right and 10 steps down. Unreachable with current.
So it says unreachable with current step size. That's because it's a point. So let's go find it.
D. Supercuts Hairdresser is 12 steps right and 4 steps up.
Okay.
2306 and 2310 Fillmore Street retail building.
All right. So basically, we found that it's right here. This is where the
Supercuts Hairdresser is 1 steps right, unreachable with current.
So we're basically there. So we can hear that there's a lot of different retail around this location with the hairdresser and whatever else is in this building. So not everything is marked on here. So basically that is,
P-
how you can kind of explore around neighborhoods with Audiom.
That's fascinating, Brandon.
We also do different types of maps as well. So, or spatial diagrams as well. So things like airplane seat maps or anatomical diagrams. So we've got a bunch of different of those types of things.
The biggest trouble that I have going, again, I mentioned taking the subway, is once you get off the train, finding your way to the street and being, in a subway station, there are multiple exits.
Yeah.
And you take the wrong one and you're across the street or even down the street. And so do you have anything, if there is and I don't know if in this case the MTA has a map of each station, how can it work for something indoors? Washington seminar is coming up in a couple of weeks. We'd love to be able to use it to find our way through the different office buildings down on Capitol Hill. Is there any indoor maps that are available to do that with?
Not at the moment. So I'm sure they are for sighted people. And so what you really need to do is contact the MTA or the places, with the office building and say, hey, please make your map accessible, and XR Navigation can help you do that. So they are already working with places like Esri or Google Maps or Apple Maps to make their maps accessible to sighted people, but those are not accessible for blind users. So unfortunately, there's no way for us to really get access to that data they have of their maps without partnering with them directly. So it's impossible for us to grab that data from Apple Maps or Google Maps, unfortunately. So, that is an advocacy job that unfortunately we have to do as blind people is any place that has a map, we need to ask for it in an accessible format and tell them that, Audiom can make their map accessible digitally so that you can have it anywhere on any device.
And I'm sure this is accessible, but I just have to bring it up because I noticed you're using NVDA, correct?
Yes.
So for JAWS users,
it works too.
Mm-hmm. Just different commands, of course. Well, they're very similar.
No, same
here.
commands, same commands. It's just different keyboard commands because JAWS has different keyboard commands. But you still click on that jump to audio map button, and then you still use the M key, the arrow keys, all that kind of stuff.
And what about VoiceOver on the Mac? Same thing?
Yeah, it works the same way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit different on the iOS or on your phone. So instead of having, you can totally, if you have a Bluetooth keyboard, you can definitely use your arrow keys on that Bluetooth keyboard. It works perfectly. But if you just want to use your touch screen, it's slightly different. A little panel of arrow keys will pop up, and you will be able to move either by double tapping or by double tapping and holding, and that'll move you forward repeatedly. So you kind of get this
2306
kind of experience when you're navigating up on VoiceOver.
So back to what David was asking about how you actually get it. So there's no cost to this, or is there?
For you, there's no cost to this.
Okay.
For the MTA, that's who we would charge.
Right. And that reminds me of my other question. Who have been some of your clients? Who are you helping?
Right now, we're working with the National Federation of the Blind. So we did a map of their exhibit hall for the national conference. If anybody wants a map of their exhibit hall or hotels that they're working with, let me know. We are going to be the official CSUN map this year. We're going to be the official ATIA map this year. We were the official IM Enabling Summit map. So we've done a lot of conferences, hotels, that kind of thing. We also are working with the University of Washington to make several of their maps accessible. Georgia Tech we're working with as well. And so there's a lot of different places that we are working with to make their maps accessible.
You were at CES. Did you do anything as far as mapping goes there? Because that is a huge conference.
There weren't enough people to ask for an accessible map before CES. So it's definitely an option for next year. So if you're going to be attending CES, please reach out to Stephen Ewell, who's the head of the CTA Foundation, and he's the guy you need to talk to about making the CES map accessible. But yeah, not enough people asked for it, so they did not make an accessible version of that. But yes, it would have been amazing to have a map that was accessible for that. Pretty much any conference that's the exact same experience. But CES is just mega. That is so big.
Probably close to 1 million square feet, I'm guessing, as far as...
Oh, at least twice
hall.
that. I don't know,
really?
actually.
Wow. Okay.
They have 4 convention centers that you're in. So it's not just one.
So did you get a chance to walk around, or were you always at your booth?
I was pretty much always at my booth, but I did get to walk around the bottom floor of the Venetian, and that it took us 15 minutes to go from the door to our booth.
That's one issue that I have. I was just at a podcasting conference down in Florida, and the first day that it opened, I had some time and the doors opened up and I walked in along with thousands of other people. And it was so loud in there. Usually in an instant like that, I will have my phone out using Seeing AI and just kind of walk around and point at where the booths are, trying to hear what that vendor may be or what that product or service might be. But it was so loud in there and so crowded. I turned around and walked right back out. I couldn't hear my phone. I was bumping into people, and I thought I'll just wait till it's a little quieter, and something like that would have been great. And I know they had a map, but again, it didn't a printed map, but it didn't help me.
Yeah, well, let me show you kind of what an accessible map might be. So this is for the RATE 2024, the Vision Rehabilitation Assistive Technology Conference map. And so basically we are here. I'm going to go ahead and hit the up arrow.
Exhibit hall,
And then
31
I'm going to go down.
stairs.
We're at the stairs, and that's the entrance to the exhibit hall. So we've got a bunch of different ways where you can kind of explore around.
Exhibit
So in the exhibit hall, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of hit the M key.
M. Filter objects submenu 2 of 100. Exhibit hall is right here.
All right, so we're right there.
Stairs is right here. Hallway is wall is right here. Wall is 2-step.
So when
Okay.
she's saying right here, are you standing and can you just assume that you're standing right in front of wherever?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You're
okay.
standing on it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Wall is Digital Apex LLC. Booth 1 is 2 steps right and 4 steps up submenu.
All right, so we can hear the Digital Apex LLC is the first booth that we come to. So I'm going to go ahead and enter on that,
D. Description. D. Direction.
and I'm going to get
Digital
directions to that. So now I can hit the right arrow,
Bleachers for quick.
and I hear that there's bleachers there, and so I probably can't walk there. So I'm going to go back,
Exhibit hall.
and I'm going to hit the D key.
D. Digital Apex LLC. Booth 1 is 2 steps right and 4 steps up.
So 2 steps right, 4 steps up. I can't go to the right because there's bleachers. I'm going to go up.
Exhibit hall.
And it seems like I can still walk there because there's nothing in my way. So I'm going to go to the right,
Digital Apex LLC. Booth 1 and Exhibit hall 33.
and that's it. So we found that this is the very first booth. So I'm going to hit the down arrow,
Exhibit
and
hall.
we can tell that there's nothing below Digital Apex, and there's nothing to the left of Digital Apex. So it's on the bottom left. I'm going to go to the right.
Digital non-24 disorder Vanda Pharmacy
Oh, there's non-24
disorder.
to the right of that.
Exhibit
And
hall.
then there's a hallway. And I'm going to keep going to the right.
Arizona Industries
Arizona
for the
Industries
blind.
for the blind.
Arizona Exhibit
Another
hall.
hallway.
Humanware Golds
Oh,
XR
next
navigation.
navigation. And then we got another hallway. And then we got a wall.
Wall.
So we got basically
Ex-
3 hallways here. And so we can go and explore along those hallways and see what where we want to go. And we've got a hallway that's going along the bottom here. So we've got, 3 columns of booths, and actually it's 4 hallways, 1 on the left, 2 in the middle, and 1 on the right. And so now we can choose, we can plan out where we want to go. So if it's super, super noisy and loud in there, you can have this picture in your mind of how the whole entire thing is laid out. You don't need to be asking people where things are or how things are laid out at all. You can just kind of, you've got this image in your mind of where things are. And if you know, like, hey, I want to go to XR navigation, you just need to kind of turn right, walk along the bleachers until you reach the wall, and you're probably pretty darn close to the XR navigation at that point. So you can just ask where the XR navigation booth is, or you can go and find a booth and say, hey, is this XR navigation? And the chances that you're at XR navigation is really, really high.
When it says 2 steps or however many steps up, that means forward basically from where you're standing. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can tell what your step size is.
I was thinking of that early, and I thought,
Yeah.
is that a silly question? Because when you first pulled that first example, it said like 29 steps. So, all right, I'm 5'2", and my
Yeah,
steps
exactly.
probably are not as wide as
The
someone
reason why we
6'4".
do it is because you can change your step size by hitting the dash or equals key, and your step size can be 1 meter, which is what we have it at by default,
Okay.
or 100 meters, which are 50 kilometers, which is what we have by default on the heat map, the COVID statistic map. So we don't really have a good, way of calling these units, these step units, other than steps. So it's not really steps. There's a bad, I guess, kind of stereotype of blind people step counting. Unfortunately, that is, I don't know a better way of labeling those other than steps, but like they are key presses but they're not key presses because you can use them at your touch screen too. But anyway, that's what they are. They're units of movement.
Yeah, I think that's the best, that's the best way to label it. And that,
UOMs.
That's how,
there you go.
When I go up and down stairs, I always know, okay, if it's something that I do frequently, I know, okay, there's 13 steps here, and then there's a landing, and then there's X number of steps up if I'm going up or down stairs. But I never count steps from point A to point B if it's a level ground. Like if I'm in a train station,
Exactly.
I never say, oh, I wonder how many paces it is to this. In looking at real estate, I would do that. I might walk off something and say, okay, that's X number by Y number, and it's however many square feet. But I don't do that just in walking around.
Yeah, exactly. So you can, Audiom can facilitate that if you know that you step 1 meter each step or 7.75 meters each step. But, it also is very helpful for, just kind of measuring, distance from two different objects. So you can get, let's look and see how far we are away from that.
D. Digital Apex, LLC. Booth 1 is 19 steps left and 1 steps up.
So it's 19 steps left. So basically, from XR navigation to digital apex is 19 meters, across. Basically, that's how big the booth from one side of the booth to the other side of the booth section is.
Now, what is this conference, this exhibit hall at?
This was at the Vision Rehabilitation Assistive Technology Conference, VRATE 2024 in Phoenix, Arizona. That was in November. I think it is November 1st,
okay,
2024.
So you're going to be at CSUN coming up in March.
Yes.
Is that another one you're going to be at your booth and not get to see what other cool things are there, or do you get
pretty much?
chance?
We'll have a map of that one, though, so I can go and virtually before I go to the conference explore all the different booths like I just did here.
Okay, and kind of see who your neighbors are, and maybe there's
Exactly.
somebody cool near you that you can talk to. Okay.
Yep, and I don't need to ask people where my booth is, which is a big problem when I'm walking into an exhibit hall for the first time. I have to be like, "Where's my booth?" Because they don't tell you. And so, with this one, the VRATE conference, I was able just to walk right to my booth and say, "Yep, this is my booth." So, I'm not fumbling around. Same thing for CSUN. I can do the same thing.
And so you did the NFB exhibit hall down in Orlando in July? Yeah. I wish I had known that.
I was thinking the same thing.
They emailed, it was on the app and they emailed it out, but they didn't publicize it enough.
So you were talking about some of the clients, the companies. Are you also keeping track of your users or who's accessing it?
We have around 2,000 active monthly users on our maps.
And have people what's the feedback? Are you getting any great personal testimonials?
Yeah, absolutely. So the VRATE conference is a great one. They were a blind conference organizing committee, and Audiom was really the first map that they had to preview the space before they actually went in. So a lot of times when you're organizing a conference, for example, you're given a map of the exhibit hall or of the space. And, if you're a blind organizing committee, it's blank. And how can you approve something that you can't view? So we were able to take that exhibit hall map and make that accessible and give them this audio map before the conference actually began. So they were actually able to go and preview the tables to see, is that how I actually want them laid out? Do we want to make any changes? Do we want them this direction or do we want them, another direction, that kind of thing. So, they're actually able to make informed decisions about how the conference should be organized. So that was the first time they're able to actually do that as a blind organizing committee.
So I wanted to talk about the makeup of the company, because you mentioned that I think you said this is for disabilities other than visual disabilities. What other disabilities are represented in the company makeup of your team?
So we've got some folks with mental disabilities or cognitive disabilities, and they've not disclosed what type they are. Blind is definitely our primary group of disability. So that is primarily what we work with. We also have some low vision folks that we work with too.
And I was just wondering what their perspective, how that aided this development of Audiom?
Absolutely. So our entire development team is especially for the non-visual experience is totally blind. So they're always being asked, what are your thoughts on this? Like they need to be able to use it themselves. So it's very personal for them. Additionally, we do co-designs every month with different types of users. So for example, this month we're doing a co-design with low vision users to try and investigate, how we can better represent the COVID statistic map for low vision users. And so that is not the first time we've done that, but design and co-design is an ongoing iterative process. And so we can't just say we've built an accessible map and call it a day. Like there's always ways that we can improve. And so we keep doing these new, designs and co-designs with folks that where we know we can definitely do better. So low vision users are this month. Hopefully next month will be, somebody else who also, wants to be able to access Audiom in a better way.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how I wish I had something like this at the conference I was at.
Contact the organizers and say, hey, Audiom makes an accessible map of your guys' hotel and the conference center. Please get it.
Of the 2,000 or 3,000 people that were there, I was the only blind one.
True, but
So,
blind people are not the only ones who have accessibility problems with maps. Low vision users, colorblind users, illiterate users, people with mobility impairments, they all have issues with many of the maps that are there. So you're representing about 20% of the population when you ask for an accessible map.
And David, you know that we're always talking about how our sighted friends are using. Like my friend who's totally sighted uses voiceover. She uses speech. Like, why do you use this? I don't understand. But it just makes things easier for her. So Brandon's right. It's not just limited to those of us who are totally blind or just
and
can't see.
Sighted people right now are forced. They don't have a choice. They're forced to use their vision to view a map.
Mm-hmm.
With Audiom, they can choose. Do you want to use audio? Do you want to use text? Do you want to use visuals?
Moving forward, do you see yourself, again, because I was traveling, just thinking about inside the airport or inside hotels, do you see yourself trying to get into those places to make navigation that much easier for folks?
Yes. So airports are a great place that we would like to get into, hospitals, any place with a map. So our vision is that every map is accessible to anyone, and we're building a platform that other tools can use to make that happen. So our ultimate vision is that Google, Apple, Esri, which are really the top 3 map providers out in the world, Mapbox, can make their platforms accessible using Audiom. So that's kind of what we built it for. Meanwhile, to kind of validate it and to test it, we're working with conferences, hotels, transit agencies, universities, zoos, museums, airports, that kind of thing.
Museums also. That's one thing that we've done work with a few museums here in Philadelphia, and something like this again would just be outstanding.
Yeah, I didn't even show you the option for reading the object cards where you can add descriptions into each object, or you can definitely add unique sounds. So like a zoo, for example, could have a sound of elephanting.
Elephanting. You have thought of a lot in I think 2 years of development.
Well, I started in 2017, so it's been almost.
Oh, okay, because I thought you said you launched in 2019. Maybe I misheard you.
Yeah, 2019 is when we started getting a lot of funding for it.
Okay.
And so that's when we started this COVID statistic map and the OpenStreetMap, but we didn't really launch until 2024. So we've been working on it for a while, but we didn't actually get something that was commercially ready until 2024.
Let's talk about the money for a minute. So you've got funding, and will that carry you through? At some point, you have to start to bring in some money from paying customers. Is that right? To keep it going?
Yes, we're at that transition stage right now. So that's why I'm asking for everybody to please ask all the conferences and all the locations to make their maps accessible, because not only are they required to by law, but we also need that their business in order to survive as a company.
One other thing, how about retail stores?
Absolutely.
To me, it would be very helpful if I knew, okay, aisle 7 is the soap, and I need to walk down 13 paces, let's say, or 13 steps to get to that on the right-hand side. Again, without having to call IRA or without having to use Be My Eyes and stop and take a picture or use Seeing AI and just hopefully you hear what you need. I just think it would be something that would make things a lot easier for a lot of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Please reach out to your Kroger's or your Walmart, your local area, your local Walmart folks. And I think even at the customer support desk, when you go and ask for a guide, that would be a place where you can ask as well. Email me as well, and I can find the right person to talk with at, Walmart or Target or whatever the corporate offices are. And I can ask their accessibility folks, to please make their maps of those stores accessible, because the biggest complaint that we get from businesses or government agencies or places with maps is nobody wants them because they're not asking for them.
That's a good segue into how people there are these opportunities. What do you call them? Audiom advocates? Is that what they're called?
Yeah, advocacy champions. Absolutely. That's what we call them. So basically, we need people to champion accessible maps in the world. All you really need to do is a couple different things you can do. One is email accessibility@apple.com or the Google accessibility feature request or the accessibility at Esri, ESRI.com, and ask them to make their maps accessible using something like Audiom from XR Navigation. The other way that you can be an advocate is by finding a location or some kind of service, even if you're booking tickets on an airplane or you've got some kind of anatomical diagram you need to view, or you want a map of a museum that you're going to. Find that location. If you can't figure out who the person is to talk with about making that map accessible, email me. My email address is brandon.biggs@xrnavigation.io, or you can go to xrnavigation.io/contact and reach me that way, or audiom.net. There's also a contact form there. So there's a lot of ways to contact me and give me the link of the website of the map that's inaccessible, and I can help you reach out to the right person. But they really need you to ask for an accessible map.
You mentioned some other things in development or some other type of maps that you're doing?
Yeah, so we're working right now on spatial diagrams, like anatomic diagrams, things like circuit diagrams, those kind of maps. We're also continuing development on our current map viewer. So we've got what we call a road following mode that is hopefully going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks, where basically you can lock to a road and just say, I want to follow this road and hear what's around me as I'm walking along that road. So that you can go, along and between the different roads really easily, rather than having to kind of orient to that road and kind of follow along that road using your arrow keys. It's a little more difficult than I made it seem on when I was showing you that. So we've got a tool that will help with that experience as well. So that's going to be coming out. We keep adding new features in. So like the mobile experience is something we released in October. So it's, we keep adding new features.
Do you see an app coming out, a standalone app for iOS and Android coming out anytime soon?
No, we do not want to do that because we're a browser-based technology. And so maybe if we want to do a browser-based app, if we want to do an actual iOS app or something like that, we're going to work with another company like Good Maps or Next.io or one of these other apps to be the accessible map on their apps. So again, if you have one of these navigation apps that you like, please tell them to get Audiom as their accessible map. We do not want to be one of those new apps, you have like 100 apps on your phone and you keep adding more because new technology comes out. We don't want to be that kind of company. We want to be something that other tools are going to use to make their maps accessible.
Before we go, I have to ask about the opera singing. And
you know what? It's so this is so strange, David, that you're really in my head, because I was going to ask Brandon, aren't you glad I didn't ask you to sing? But
and I'm not going to ask you to sing, but when you do, where have you performed, and tell us some of the operas that you've done.
So operas, I've done a lot of parts of them, but the only one I've actually done professionally is Colline in La Boheme. So it's a park for young man.
And where was that at?
That was in Berkeley, California.
And national anthems. You've sung the Star Spangled Banner.
Oh
Where at?
man,
A
so
lot of
many
places.
times.
So any sporting events?
Yeah, not any that are famous. I
Okay.
used to
Oh,
sing.
so you're not doing the Super Bowl this year?
Not, unfortunately not. But yeah, I used to sing for all my. I went to California State University East Bay. I used to sing for most of their basketball and I sing football. I think I sang a few football games. Definitely most of their basketball games. And I also sang went to a community college first and sang at all their football games there. So tons and tons of national anthems.
Well, David was right. You do wear a lot of hats, but great job. Good work. This is great. I'll have to say, I initially when David presented it, I'm like, I don't understand it, but I got it now. And the demonstration was great. Thank you for that. How can people, I know you gave out your info, but how can people reach you? What is the most immediate need? Just plug away.
A most immediate need is for you to contact any place that has an existing map that you would like accessible. And you can reach me at brandon.biggs@xrnavigation.io. You can also go and generate your own map of your neighborhood at audiom.net and view. Before you do that, also try out the interactive demo at audiom.net as well. If you're going to be attending CSUN or any of the assistive technology conferences coming up, ask them for their accessible map. And if they don't have one, you should tell them they need to get one because they are not that expensive and the institutions can easily, reach out to us and get their maps made.
Now, you mentioned working with NFB. Are you going to be at this year's convention?
I need to talk to them about that.
Okay.
Ask them to have an accessible map at their convention, and they will be more likely to do it.
Thank you, Brandon. This has been delightful. Thank you so much for all of your efforts. And your story is also interesting in that you were very willing to sort of shift your direction because of a real need, and you've been the first to fulfill that void. So good going. Thanks for taking it for the team, for the rest of us.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of my, goals in life. That's kind of why I'm getting my PhD, is to work on really difficult problems that blind people just haven't solved for themselves yet. A lot of assistive technology is built for blind people by sighted people.
Yeah.
And there's just so few blind people actually building technology for blind people. And that needs to be funded more and encouraged more. And like, to give you an idea, there's millions and millions, probably hundreds of millions of dollars that's poured into assistive technology research each year, that I would say maybe 1% of that goes to blind people for out of that 100 million that's being funneled into assistive technology research. So it's so small. And one of the reasons is because there's only about 15 blind people in the world with a computer science PhD. And so we need a lot more people going into research, blind people going into research to build their own technology. So, and starting an assistive technology business is extremely hard as well. It's because there's not a ton of people, to actually be customers. So this is free for blind people. We could have definitely charged for it, but again, like, a lot of people don't have enough money for paying for something like this. So, that's kind of why we decided to make it free for blind people, because there's just not enough maps in the world for blind people. To give you a perspective on this, able-bodied people view around 300 maps a year. Contrast that with blind people who view less than one. So that is the massive gap that we're trying to close here.
Well, we thank you again, and we will definitely have to stay connected.
Brandon, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks again to Brandon for stopping by and giving us the demos for Audiom and telling us more how we could help XR navigation get into many more places, including the NFB National Convention coming up this July in New Orleans.
Yes, if you like what you heard, there are opportunities to help see that Brandon gets to the convention. Start talking about it to your chapter presidents or your affiliate presidents, and let's see. Maybe we can make this happen because I think it's a great product.
I really, really wish, as I mentioned in the interview, the exhibit halls are so difficult for me to navigate, and I get frustrated so quickly. There were so many opportunities that I could have used this down in Podfest in Orlando, where I was last week. The only way I got back into the exhibit hall was I was offered a bribe to go to one of the booths to check it out, and I was able to navigate to that. But otherwise, I didn't really walk around because it was just so difficult for me to navigate. And same thing goes if you think about CSUN. If you're going there, make sure you stop by Brandon's booth and say hello. And don't forget to go and give it a try at audiom.net. Try your neighborhood, do the demonstration, do the tutorial so you know how to use it and see how you like it. And again, outside I'm okay with, but boy, it would be so nice to have these accessible maps in the train stations, the airports and whatnot, where you don't have to rely. I know that IRA is free in a lot of those places, but sometimes you can't get somebody from IRA on the phone.
Yeah.
And if you have this, you're not waiting on anybody. You've got it right on you. You can go. And even ahead of time, especially with an exhibit hall, for example, you kind of you get the layout down and you say, okay, I need to go 3 rows in and 1 row down or whatever it might be. It would just make things a lot easier.
There are ways that you can get involved and help support this and make it available. Like I said, it helps us expand our world. When we have the tools to navigate, it just makes us that much more independent.
And we would love to hear from you to let us know what you think about this episode or any other episode for that matter, what you have coming up. If you're looking forward to National Convention in July, give us a call, 267-338-4495. You've got up to 3 minutes to leave your name and town and ask your question, leave your comment, whatever it might be. Think about it before so you don't go past that 3 minutes because we're only getting 3 minutes. I mean, you could call back, I guess. Again, 267-338-4495.
And if you don't want to think about that time limit, you could go on forever. We don't have a word count limit in our Gmail account, which is whitecanesconnect@gmail.com.
Lisa, this was a great first recording of the new year. Now, I know we've had a couple of episodes come out already, but they were from the convention, and this was a good one to start off the year, I think.
Yeah, I agree. So thanks for bringing him to our attention. So thanks for listening, everyone.
Thanks for listening. Take care.